My name is Michael, and today I'm going to show you how I made this phenomenal epoxy river topography coffee table. And in true Michael Builds fashion, I'm going to show you all the stuff I did wrong along the way. With that being said, make sure to stay tuned till the end of the video where I go over some things I would have done differently. Let's make something cool. Look at all of the stuff that Total Boat sent us to play with. They sent us everything. They sent us some bar top stuff, some thick set stuff, some colorants, even some stirrers and containers, and even a hat. So I just wanted to take a quick second to thank Kristy from Total Boat for making this video possible and sending us all this wonderful stuff to play with. And today, we're working with thick set. We're gonna start by cutting the base for our mold, which this one is going to be 20 inches by 32 inches, and then we're gonna rip our sides at 2 1/4, giving us 1.5 inches depth. Then just screw your sides on with 1.5 inch screws, and I am still loving these 1.5 inch spack screws with the wafer heads. That way I don't have to deal with any of that pre-drill nonsense. Now, before we seal the corners with silicone, we want to work on our topography riverbed pattern. And you could use a multitude of materials, Luan, 1/4 inch plywood. I happen to use this whiteboard material, and this happens to be 1/4 inch thick. As far as the pattern is concerned, you can look them up online or you can design them yourself. I went through several different designs before I fell on one, and this is what I came up with. So we're gonna go over to the bandsaw and knock this out. By the way, I'm using this transfer paper to transfer the design onto the whiteboard. You can pick this stuff at like Office Max, Office Depot, any office supply place. So I'm gluing down my whiteboard design with the Rapid Set Flexible Construction Adhesive. But don't forget to glue it upside down, especially if it has letters. You don't want to flip this top over and find out that you got everything in backwards. I know, looks really cool, right? Now we're gonna seal all the corners with 100% silicone. I use the black so that I can see it well. Now, you've seen me use this trick before where after I lay down my bead of caulk, I then spray it with a spray foam glass cleaner and then clean up all the excess. Now, the premise is that the silicone won't stick anywhere the glass cleaner is. Makes for a really easy cleanup. Great tip, try it out. Now on this particular project, I don't want big rounded corners. I want smaller, sharper corners, but not too sharp. So I'm gonna cut the tip very small, and I'm gonna use this really cool caulking tool to give me a nice, tight, sharp radius on all the corners, and it will help me clean up a little bit better too. I usually use WD-40 as a mold release, but today we're gonna use paste wax. I've been told that it does really well at getting rid of those pore marks, those really nasty pore marks, so we're gonna see how that goes. Try that out. Now we gotta make sure to put some kind of metal reinforcement in here. I'm using this metal lath, and make sure to cut out a cutout right here where our river is going to poke through the bottom. All right. Usually I use mortar mix when I do a countertop, but today for this project I'm going to use the Cementol because I want that finer aggregate that comes in this bag. Also, this comes out to be a lighter gray color as opposed to the tan color that mortar mix tends to come out. So what we're going to do is we're going to pour 5 quarts of water in the bucket first, pour our set control in and mix it well. This will buy me at least 15 to 20 more minutes. Then we're gonna pour the cement all in and mix it as we pour. After you mix that really well, then we're gonna add in our flow control to get that great pourable consistency. Now, even though we've added in the set control, you wanna move fast. Have all your materials ready to go right next to the project. Have your metal lath or metal reinforcement ready to go. Once I fill the form to about 3/4 from the top, that's when I'm gonna add in my metal lath. Then I'm gonna pour the rest on top and screed it out. It was exactly 1 bag of Cemental. I totally planned it that way. And just tap those bubbles out and you're good to go. Let it cure for about an hour and you can demold this puppy. Also, don't forget to water cure. Extra important with Cemental because it gets so hot. And when you do water cure, make sure to water cure for 1 hour or until the heat dies down. Now, the sheen is gone, so now I know that I can start water curing. All right, it's been a little over an hour, and it's time to demold this thing. Now, I'm hoping that this is gonna pop right out like my other concrete tops, but based on the test piece I did, not gonna happen. But this is still my favorite part, the big reveal. Ooh, I can feel it wiggling a little bit. It wants to come out, it wants to come out. Okay, the river piece didn't come out like I wanted to, but I'm very happy with the top. There are no voids, no bubbles. It's perfect. Let's try chiseling out this river. This also wants to come out. It's coming. I broke some of the edges. I knew I was gonna regret that. You son of a... We can fix that. We can fix that. No big deal. All right, so all in all, not too bad, but definitely not the perfection that I was looking for. Especially the corners of each layer, very, very rough. They turned out very rough. But that is 100% my fault because I realized that I forgot to seal the corners. So this is what happens when you don't seal the corners. I had actually thought about just redoing everything, repouring, but I think we're gonna move forward. I think I've salvaged enough of this island to where I can re-glue it back together and it won't look too much like poo. Could not salvage this last little layer where it pokes through, so I'm actually going to chisel out and get rid of the rest of this second layer and try to make like I meant to do it like that. And then we can move on to the epoxy. We are going to embrace the suck. We are going to make it look like we meant to do this. I think it's still gonna turn out pretty good in the end. Yeah, it's gonna be fine. It's gonna be fine. And I need some more coffee. So what I've done so far is I've filed all the rough edges and corners down a little bit, got rid of all the little boogers, wiped it down really good with acetone. Next, we have to prepare for the epoxy. So what I've done here is I've taken a piece of melamine and I've glued it and sealed it onto the back. I've glued and sealed a piece on the side here, and I've glued and sealed a piece on the other side of the river as well. Now, one thing that I've learned about epoxy is that much like water, if you haven't sealed these seams well, it will find a way through. So make sure you seal it well. Now, as far as when can you pour the epoxy? Now, with a regular concrete or cement, you've got to wait at least a week. With Rapid Set, technically you could actually pour after you demold it, but I want to wait at least 24 hours to make sure that all the moisture has leached out of the top. That's just too much potential for air bubbles to get trapped and try to raise up while the epoxy's trying to cure. So we're gonna come back to this tomorrow. All the moisture should be gone from the top. These sides should be adhered really well. And then tomorrow, we get to do the really fun stuff. All right, so it's the next day and we're ready to pour, but we'd probably like to know how much material we're gonna use before we do that. The formula is actually pretty simple. It's length times width times height divided by 61. That'll give you how many liters you need. From there, you can figure out how many gallons or quarts you need. With this, it becomes a little bit more difficult, so you end up having to average out the numbers. I've done that, and I'm not so sure I trust the numbers. So what I'm gonna do is I'm actually going to fill this up with water and measure that water. But the other information that will also give me is, do I have any leaks? Which is gonna be very important. You don't wanna spend the money on this product only to have it leak all over your shop floor. All right, so we're gonna be using the Total Boat Thick Set, which is a resin and a hardener, part A, part B, and it's mixed 3-to-1. Get yourself one of these buckets that has the mixing ratios on the back. Makes it so much easier. Mixing this stuff up couldn't be easier. It's so easy. So look on the back of your bucket and you're gonna find this bar graph that says 3-to-1. You're gonna choose a number that looks like it's gonna be the amount that you need. In this case, we're gonna choose the 6. We're gonna fill the resin up to that first 6. Then we're gonna take the hardener, part B, and then fill it up to the second 6 on the bar graph. Then we're gonna mix that up really well. After we know that we've got a nice consistent mix, then we're gonna add our color. Now, Total Boat was kind enough to send me all sorts of different little colors in this this black diamond pigment. I'm not gonna use it for this particular project because these are solid colors. They're magnificent, but it's not what I'm looking for in this project. So I'm gonna use the Unicorn Spit. This particular color is Blue Thunder. I'll leave a link down in the description below. And then for the exciting part, we're just going to pour away and watch the magic happen. I've watched about 100 epoxy videos and this doesn't get old. This shot does not get old. It's so satisfying. Isn't it sad? Are you satisfied? I'm satisfied.
That's what she said. Michael.
I don't talk a lot about safety on this channel because safety is up to you. But what I will say is what I have learned about epoxy is this is nasty, nasty stuff for your respiratory system. So make sure you wear a really good respirator. Stuff is really bad for your system, so make sure you mask up.
I forgot to level it again. Don't forget to level. Don't. Alright, we're gonna let that cook at this level for now, and then we're gonna do one more coat on top.
Okay, so I've taken the side molds off. I have cleaned up the surfaces and the corners with an orbital sander. I started off with 80 grit, 180 grit, then ended with 220 grit, which, by the way, I've been using these Diablo SandNet pads, and these are pretty badass. This epoxy was clogging up my regular sanding pads within seconds. It was making it impossible. So what was really cool about these is when used in tandem with a shop vac attachment, it was just sucking those particles as I was sanding. It was pretty phenomenal. So I highly recommend these. I'll leave a link in the description down below for these. Right now, the epoxy is about 1/16 below the surface of the concrete. Now, we just need to pour one last layer to bring the epoxy 100% flush with the top, and to let the epoxy pour over the sides, making the sides look glassy, smooth, and seamless with the top. Also, before I forget, because I know I'm going to get a lot of questions about this, the thick set is not meant for exterior. It's not UV resistant. So if you're looking for this top to live outside, Total Boat does make a clear sealer that is UV resistant. It's called Helcon Clear. What's cool about this is that you can recoat in 1 hour. It's fast drying. You don't have to mix two parts with this. You just pour it on. You can brush it, roll it, spray it, whatever you want to do. So it is 5:30 a.m. and came into the shed to check on the latest pour and to wrap things up with this video, and well, I'm just gonna show you what I see right now so you can feel what I feel inside of my heart right now. Isn't that awesome? Yeah. Thanks, Fly. So that means I have to wait 48 hours for it to be sandable and fixable. And there's that. We will persevere. We'll take care. I'll fix this, don't worry. I tried many different things to fix this fly issue, but in the end, I just ended up sanding it down to 220 and re-pouring just another thin layer and just be done with it. Just after I got done pouring and covering the top, another fly made its way into the shop. Needless to say, it got Breaking Bad Walter White in here really quick.
You little son of a bitch.
Just watched an episode of Breaking Bad called Fly, and you'll know my crazy. Sorry that I didn't show you how to build this base, but I think that you and I can both agree that this video has gone on long enough. But real quick, this is 1.5 by 1.5 oak stock that I had left over from a previous project. They are joined together by half laps. They are cut at 8-degree angles to add a little bit of visual interest. Now, normally for a project like this, I would attach the base with the construction adhesive, but I have company showing up in about an hour, so I don't have time for that right now. So I'm going to use the ultra-fast anchoring adhesive instead. This adhesive is going to be rock solid in about 5 minutes, so I can do all my breakdancing on this table, well, in about 5 minutes. So, 5 things that I would have done differently with this project. 1, I would have used a mechanical mixer to mix the epoxy. Not only would this have saved me time, but also it would have mixed the colorant in much more thoroughly. It came out fine, but if you look closely, you can see little solids left over from the unicorn spit colorant. I probably would have gotten a much more consistent, clear look had I used a mechanical mixer on the end of a drill. 2, I would have used Tyvek tape to cover the melamine mold from the epoxy so that the epoxy would debond much easier. I had a hell of a time trying to get the melamine to break away from the epoxy, especially the thicker parts of the pour where the epoxy heated up more. It just fused with that melamine. The Tyvek tape would have prevented this. Number 3, seal everything with the 100% silicone. All the seams, all the corners. Man, was I kicking myself for forgetting about the seams. You'll come out with a much nicer, much more polished product. before. I probably would have sealed the concrete with a concrete sealer before pouring the epoxy to prevent any kind of discoloration from the epoxy or from the silicone. I managed to get by, make it look pretty, but probably would have saved myself a lot of time and hassle in the end. And 5, which probably should have been my number 1, cover your project while it cures. Save yourself a lot of grief, time, and hassle in the end. I promise. Flies, am I right? Can you tell I'm just a little salty about it? Flies, man, flies! Now that I got the top on the base, I'm also noticing another thing that I would have done differently, and it is stain the top of the base. This light part just sticks out like a sore thumb. Didn't see that coming until I flipped it over. Anyway. So that's it. That's the... Hold on one second. Yeah, that's better. So, give me a thumbs up if you like this video. If you haven't subscribed yet, please think about doing so. I promise you won't regret it. And I'll see you in the next really cool project video. I'm just so excited to play with the other stuff that Total Bolt gave me. We're gonna have some really cool videos coming up, I'm telling you. I'm just so excited!